This is the Arctic ice in the North Pole from September 1984, and this is the same region's ice from September 2019. This data captured by NASA shows how rapidly the North Pole ice has been melting in just 40 years. According to official scientific records, it melts at a rate of about 12.2% every 10 years. To address this issue and stop the Arctic sea ice from melting, a Dutch startup called Arctic Reflections is launching a mega project that is set to be as ambitious as Mars colonization. They are planning to refreeze a massive area of 15.5 million square kilometers, an area large enough to fit 5 countries like India, in just 6 years. To achieve this, they will be spraying paradoxically saline water across the icy North Pole. For those who are unfamiliar, saline water is traditionally used to prevent ice formation on roads in snowy countries. This same method, which typically melts ice, is now being used by scientists to refreeze it. Although this approach may sound strange, it's actually quite fascinating. Imagine the scale of this project. We struggle to keep glaciers in the Himalayas frozen, leading to floods and devastation. Scientists are attempting to freeze an area equivalent to 5 Indias. Naturally, this raises the question of why such a massive and seemingly impossible project is necessary. After all, the Arctic is in a remote corner of the world. Why does it matter what happens there? Here's where we all get it wrong. When scientists set a 6-year deadline for themselves, it's not a decision they made on their own, it's nature that has set the deadline. According to the most recent estimates, by September 2023, we will experience a summer where Arctic sea ice has completely melted for the first time. And if that happens, NASA scientist Christina Pistone says that in the next 25 years, the increase in carbon dioxide emissions and subsequent heat will rise sharply after 2030. This was discovered through official satellite imaging patterns, which you can see on the screen. You might remember this year's extreme heat, touching 50 degrees Celsius. In India alone, about 25,000 people had to be hospitalized from March to May, with 56 people dying due to the heat. In fact, similar trends have been observed worldwide. From 2014 to 2023, these were the 10 hottest years on record, with 2023 being the hottest year ever recorded. I've never experienced heat like this in my life. There are also coastal cities and villages around the world that are sinking into the sea. For instance, villages on the northern coast of Java Island in Indonesia, which were once dry before 2005, now have children swimming to school and mothers waiting for low tide to do household chores. A similar situation is occurring in Bangkok, Thailand. The poles you see in the middle of the sea are actually electricity poles because there used to be a village there a few decades ago. Many other cities around the world are facing similar issues, such as Venice in the Netherlands, New Orleans in the USA, Virginia Beach, Lagos in Nigeria, Dhaka in Bangladesh, and Mumbai, our financial capital. These cities are rapidly sinking, and after the complete melting of Arctic ice, we will likely see some of these cities disappear right before our eyes. Thus, saving Arctic sea ice has become a life-or-death situation for us. If we don't act now, this unique planet capable of supporting life could become a living hell. So what are the scientists of Arctic Reflections doing to prevent this, and will they be able to refreeze the Arctic sea ice in the massive area they plan to cover in time? The answer is actually quite interesting. Before discussing that, let's address the root problem: the intense sunlight and rising temperatures due to global warming. Personally, this has been quite problematic for me. I'm sure you've experienced it too. In our profession, looks play a significant role. Now let's get back to the topic and discuss whether Arctic Reflections scientists will be able to refreeze the Arctic sea ice in the massive area they plan to cover. To carry out this Mars colonization-sized mega-project, the scientists at Arctic Reflections have devised a brilliant strategy to maximize refreezing the Arctic with minimal cost and effort. This strategy has proven so effective that even the United Nations has appointed this new startup as the leader of the Arctic Sea Ice Restoration Project. In fact, near the North Pole is a place called Svalbard Archipelago, which falls under Norway, and is one of the fastest warming places on the planet, heating up about 3 times faster than the Earth's average temperature year after year. Arctic Reflections took small diesel-powered water pumps to Svalbard and started spraying the saline water from the Arctic Ocean beneath the ice to create an extra layer of ice by freezing it with the cold air above. You might have seen the show Ice Road Truckers on History TV, where truckers drive on frozen rivers and lakes in Canada and Alaska. The frozen rivers shown in that show are also frozen using this technique every year. But here's the catch: as I mentioned earlier, many countries sprinkle saline water on their roads to prevent ice formation before snowfall. So, will Arctic Reflections' plan backfire? Will we end up melting the Arctic sea ice instead of refreezing it? This doubt is totally valid. That's why in Canada and Alaska, fresh water, not brine salt water, is pumped onto the ice. But in the Arctic, saline water can be used effectively because it behaves similarly to fresh water. Let me explain how fresh water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, but seawater freezes at around -20 degrees Celsius. In the Arctic, where temperatures are around -40 degrees Celsius, both types of water freeze, so salty seawater will not melt the Arctic ice. Additionally, the water pumps used by Arctic Reflections are quite portable and powerful, making it comparatively easier to place them across the Arctic ice than covering the entire Arctic with reflective glass beads or white fabric to reflect sunlight, as suggested by previous studies. Arctic Reflections is also aware that these pumps currently require fuel, which paradoxically contributes to ice melting due to carbon dioxide emissions. Therefore, after initial trials, they plan to install wind farms in the North Pole to run these pumps using green energy. But like any global environmental initiative, this noble project is facing criticism, either being dismissed as unnecessary hype or its threats being downplayed. Let me clear this up. Many people still believe that global warming is just a hoax and that Earth naturally goes through ice ages and warm phases every few thousand years without human contribution. So where does the truth lie? To answer this, let's first understand where this belief comes from, and then the rest will make sense. When we first started recording global temperature data in 1850, Earth's average global temperature was 13.7 degrees Celsius. However, since the Industrial Revolution, with Europeans starting industries, construction, and motor engines, the Earth's average temperature has increased by 0.06 degrees Celsius every 10 years. After 1982, with rapid industrialization and countries like China, Japan, and South Korea joining in, the average global temperature started rising by 0.2 degrees Celsius every 10 years, 3 times faster. Here are 2 major misconceptions. First, the current average global temperature is 15.8 degrees Celsius, leading some to think Earth is quite cool overall. Second, the temperature has only increased by 1.35 degrees Celsius since 1850, which doesn't seem like a huge jump. But this is where people overlook the severity of the situation. The average global temperature includes extremes from the poles to the equator. A rise of just 1 degree Celsius means that the warmer regions are experiencing significant temperature increases. Our planet is a complex ecosystem that requires various temperature ranges. For example, our body temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. Even a 1 degree increase is considered a fever, indicating something is wrong. Similarly, a 1 degree rise in global average temperature creates an unhealthy ecosystem, triggering a cascade of events that lead to further temperature increases until all the ice melts and catastrophe ensues. As global warming increases, it triggers a chain reaction affecting every living being on Earth. The polar ice caps start melting, leading to less white snow to reflect sunlight. This results in more ocean water evaporating, creating more greenhouse gases. The ice caps also trap methane gas, which, if released, contributes further to global warming. As oceans warm, carbon dioxide dissolves and releases into the atmosphere, triggering even more global warming. Lastly, increased heat leads to droughts and forest fires, releasing more greenhouse gases and raising temperatures further.